Okay, today I'm going to show you how to properly set up a rear wheel on a motorized bike. This is one area where a lot of people have problems with either bent spokes, bent rims, or not getting the rag joint set up properly. I'm going to show you where you can buy a beefy, high quality rear wheel. Check the link down below. I'm also going to show you how easy it is to install. Well, it's not that easy, but how you can install a rag joint and get it set up. The rag joint, there's no problem using them, provided you get them set up properly from the get-go and get them tuned. Let's get started. Okay, you're going to need a 17mm wrench. I've got a piece of tubing that I cut out of a bike that I use to hold the brake arm. Here I've got everything secured in a vise. One thing you want to do with any brand new installation is grease the bearings. Quite often from the factory, they don't put enough grease in them. So you want to make sure that your bearings are properly greased. The dust cap, we're going to grind it down. They've got plenty of grease in this bearing here, but I'm still going to show you my way that I kind of sneakily do it. Let's see here. Let's look at the other side of the wheel. I'm going to use the brake arm, put it back on the wheel. And right now at this point, all I'm doing is I'm turning mostly the axle shaft and loosening it up from the cone nut on the other side. I'll show you that in just a second. Okay, I backed it up about an inch. You've got the small bearing. First thing we're going to do is grease up all the bearings. There are three. Let's start with the small bearing. And I'm going to put some grease all over it. Let's go ahead and turn the cog where the sprocket mounts onto counterclockwise to screw it out. We've got the sprocket side bearing here. Screw that in. Push everything in. Now let's go to the other side of the wheel. And we've got plenty of grease in there. You want to be careful that you get the slots in your cone nut here on the brake side that they match up with the tabs on the clutch inside. And I'm going to get the axle back into position here. And I've got it now just to where it's snug. Get rid of the excess grease here. Okay, the rag joint comes with two rubber discs. you've got to cut one, cut it between two of the holes in it, put it over the hub, like so. As you can see, I'm using a vise to hold this in. First order of business, I've got to cut the dust cap down or drill the sprocket bigger. I'm choosing to just go ahead and grind down the dust cap. It needs about 1/8 of an inch taken off. You've got the part of the dust cap where it wraps around. I'm going to be grinding that off first. Then I'm going to be coming in about maybe 1/16 of an inch here and grind it to where it will fit through the hole in the sprocket. I have rigged up a little holder here to hold my dust cap. I grind it down on my bench grinder. Got a fender washer here. I'm going to put the washer that went over the brake arm on top. Snug it down. I don't want to get it too tight. I'll deform the metal on the dust cap. So I've got it reasonably snug. And we're going to hit it with a grinder first, and I'm going to grind off just that lip that's been around. I'm going to grind that off all the way around first, and then I'm going to take off a little bit of metal. Flying at your face. Okay, here's my first pass. I've just taken off the lip, just the width of the wheel. Okay, I've got the lip ground off. We've still got a little bit more to go. In your grinding, you want to make sure you have it concentric, meaning you want to maintain your center line. You don't want to grind one end all the way in and then have this other side of it here be fatter here. So you want to make sure that you do it as close to a perfect circle as you can get here. We're not going to get a perfect circle, but like I said, you want to make sure that you grind off an even amount all the way around within it at least about 1/16 of an inch. And there we go. It fits with just a little bit of gap in there. Okay, I've ground off any of the burrs and trash, any little slivers you want to get off. You can dress it with a file. You can clean it up with a utility blade. Bottom line, we just don't want little pieces of metal shavings to get into the bearing. This is a nylock nut. The nylock nut has nylon inside of it. Some of the rag joint kits come with what I call the Chinese lock nuts. It basically has a two little slots cut into it, and instead of a nylon in the locking nut, it's dependent upon the metal to bind against the threads of the bolts that it's going to go on. If you have those, throw those away. Go to the hardware store, get you some 6mm nylock nuts. It's well worth the investment. If you've just got the regular 6mm nuts, they'll work fine as well. You want to make sure that you're going to put a lock washer and a washer on it. To mount the rag joint to the wheel, you're going to need a 10mm socket. I like to use one that's got a little bit of a swivel bit on a 1/4-inch drive extension here, a 10mm combination wrench, and a screwdriver. Okay, I have my rubber piece that I cut and put on the inside. I put the other rubber piece on the sprocket. I push the bolts through, all 9 of the bolts through. Now we're going to put the sprocket up there. Now then, what we're going to want to do is push the bolts through the holes in the rubber piece. And it kind of takes 3 hands to do it. I like to start where I cut the splice in the rubber piece and then kind of work my way around. Half the time you so much as sneeze and it comes loose, but don't worry about it so much. Okay, I have the splice right here. Your rag joint kit comes with 3 of the mounting plates, or sometimes it comes with 3 and then 2 of the other ones. All you really need are the 3 of them that have the 3 holes each. I am putting the mounting plate over the cut part. Okay, I have pushed the bolt through it. You can see right here I have the bolt through the mounting plate. I'm going to put a flat washer over it, and then I hold it with my finger here. I'm going to put a lock washer over it. Then I'm going to put a nut through it. Getting the first one on is rather tricky. Because you have to fight the spokes and get it started. Okay, I'm going to put the second mounting plate on. Flat washer, put that on, hold it on with your other finger, the lock washer. Okay, you see where the intersection is? Here, you got to get your fat fingers and fat thumb through there and get the nut to go on the bolt. So what I will do is put a finger through the middle and have my thumb come around the edge. And start it on. Okay, so we've got the third plate to put on. Put on the flat washer. put on the lock washer. Let's get the nut on there. This is hard to do, as well I got sweat going into my eye at the same damn time. Come on. That, and I'm doing it a little bit differently so I can let you see on the camera. Or try to let you see. There we go, I have the nut started on it. Go ahead and get all of the other nuts started on the 9 mounting bolts. You just want to get a couple of threads started. That's all you want to do at this point. Okay, now that I have all of the hardware started, what we're going to do is we're going to, on the center hole in each of the 3 plates, that's what we're going to focus on first. So here's the plate. The plate ends here, ends here. This is the center bolt or nut that is on it. I'm going to put my 10mm wrench on it. And I'm going to come back on the other side with my ratchet. With my ratchet. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 9, 10, 11, 12. Okay, I have about 3 threads going through the nut. So what we're going to do, we're going to turn the wheel. We're going to find the middle nut bolt on it, on the next plate, and we're going to turn it to get just about 3 threads through. It's about 14 twists with the ratchet here. Let's go ahead and go on to the next one. Okay, here's the reason why I'm only getting 3 threads through. Now what I need to do, I need to go back and I need to be able to reposition this and get this centered. You do not want to hit it with a hammer once you really start to get this any tighter. Right now I can get away with it because it's fairly loose. And then you can take your screwdriver and work it to where you can see that it's centered. The hole in the sprocket pretty much matches up with the outer part of the recess where the bearing goes into. So you can see that I can see that I've got it centered. So what I'm going to do, just on those same 3 bolts that I tightened up, this one, skip 2, that one, skip 2, and that one. So this one, and this one are the 3 that I tightened up. I'm going to tighten them up another 10 quick turns with the ratchet. There we go. And then we're going to check and see how well we're still aligned. It's drifted just a little bit. Looks pretty well aligned. We can put the dust cap on at this point here. The dust cap will help keep it aligned too. I'm going to go ahead and take the dust cap off just so you can see a little bit more what we're doing. Now I'm going to go back to the other ones, the other bolts, and I'm going to tighten them up the same that I have the other the first 3 that I tightened up. And you can tell when you've got it. I've got about maybe 1, 2, 3, I've got about maybe 5 threads through the nut on each one. So I'm just going to tighten it up to where I see 5 threads through each, and I'm just going to go all the way around. Okay, I now have them equally tightened up all the way around, and I just want to see if we've drifted any. Looks like it's a little bit, like it's drifted just a little bit this way here. I'm going to take my screwdriver, pull it down a little bit. You don't want to pry too hard. At this point here, if you pry real hard, you can bend the metal part of the hub that's holding the bearing and crush it and damage the bearing. So I'm just kind of taking what it's given me. At this point here, I do not want to hit this with a hammer. You hit it with a hammer, you're going to wind up flattening the tooth here and or bending the teeth of the sprocket, and that's going to work against you here. I gave it some love taps earlier. I can even see just from the light tapping I gave it, it did flatten the teeth somewhat, but not too bad. Just with normal wear, that's going to wear off anyways. I'm not so worried about that right now. That's not going to be a problem. At this point here, I'm going to go ahead and put the dust cap in. Your dust cap should have more or less an even gap all the way around. If it doesn't, you might need to loosen things up and readjust your sprocket. Make sure it's centered. So now I'm going to go back to my center bolts that go through the middle hole in each of the mounting plates, and I'm going to give each one, I'd say about 10 turns. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I tightened that one. We're going to skip 2. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. We're going to skip 2. We're going to go to this one here. Got that even? Now then we're just going to go ahead, I'm going to go ahead and tighten up the other ones and get them the equal amount of torque on each one. As well, you can visually tell by how many threads are sticking through the nut. Take your time, be patient. It's important that you do this slowly because you do not want to warp the sprocket. Count your threads, just see to it that you're getting each nut fastened down just as tight as the next one. You want to tighten them up slowly and evenly all the way around, a couple of turns each time until you get everything good and snug. Now it looked like it slipped a little bit here, and I'm going to see if I can move it a little bit with my screwdriver. If it looks like it's going to be too tough, I'm going to need to loosen it up. This is why it's important that you work slowly and check it frequently to ensure that the sprocket is centered on the wheel. That way you don't get it real tight and get it real far off, and then you have to loosen everything up and start over again. Check your work frequently, and if you make little bitty adjustments, it's that much easier. Okay, I've got the dust cap pushed on. I'm rotating it. It's not binding. So we're going to go for our final round of tightening things up. I'm going to go once again for my middle bolt in each of the plates. Got about 7 on that one. Getting about 7 there. We'll go to this one here. Alright, and then we're going to go to all the other ones and give them about the same amount of torque. Okay, at this point all of them are pretty doggone snug. I'm giving each one about maybe about a third of a turn, maybe a half, and I'm just doing it by feel. Okay, they're all evenly tight. The dust cap just lightly binds in some areas. Here, I'm able to turn it. That'll wear loose. So what we're going to do now is we're going to put our brake arm on. And I'm checking that once I snug up the brake arm, that I have a gap here between the brake arm and the head of the bolt. If there's not a gap here, and the brake arm strikes the bolts, you're going to need to take the brake arm off, bend it up toward the head of the bolts. They'd normally run about right here. Bend the arm up and then come back like right here, and then bend it back. That way you'll have proper registration on your brake arm. So we're going to put the brake arm on, the washer, the locking nut for the washer, the jam nut. Okay, you want to make sure that you can rotate it around. It rotates around freely. Okay, so you want to make sure that you can rotate it around. It rotates freely. Then you want to check for any side-to-side play in the axle, the bearings. If you have it loose, what you're going to need to do is put a wrench on the nut here on the sprocket side. Of course, we haven't put the sprocket on yet, but not a big deal. Put a wrench on it, and then you can use the brake arm to tighten it up. There's no play in there. You want to make sure that you don't get it too tight to where it puts a bind on the bearing. I'm using my... So we're going to take our wrench, and tighten it up some. Now that we've done that, so we're going to go back, use our pipe, tighten up the jam nut. I've got that good and snug. You want to make sure after you get this tight, you want to turn it, make sure it's not binding, and make sure that there's no wiggle, no wobble in the axle, because you could have turned the axle, and in which case you'll have to come back, put your wrench here on the back side, and tighten or loosen this up here to make sure that you've got free motion with no play in the axle. And I'm going to give it just a little bit of a tighten up here. There we go. Okay, so since this is a brand new one, we haven't put the sprocket on yet. The sprocket is dished out. You want the dish out. You've got the 3 slots cut here, and then you have the 3 pins. Whoop, pardon me. Let's take it off. You have your dust cap. Put your dust cap on first. Push that all the way down. Then we go with the sprocket. Then you have the keeper ring here. It's cut. Put that on. Push your keeper ring into place. Make sure it's pushed all the way down. I like to take a pair of channel locks. Press. Okay, I have the wheel mounted on the bike. I have the wheel centered in the frame. It's on properly. It's not skewed one way, right or left. And we're going to see how much side-to-side play we have in the sprocket. If the side-to-side play of the sprocket is wider than the width of the chain, you're going to need to make some adjustments here. I have got maybe, right now it's rubbing, I've got a little bit of a gap. What little bit wobble it's got is no wider than the width of the chain. So we're good to go on this here. But let's say that I've got it to where it's rubbing here, it pushes, and then I've got a big gap here, and I've got a gap most of the way around, and then in one area it starts rubbing. So that area it starts rubbing. Let's say it starts rubbing here, where these two spokes intersect. What I'm going to do is come back with a hammer and I'm going to hit it here. I'm going to give it some good hits. Not like real super hard, but I'm going to give it some good licks. Okay, let's say like maybe for 3 sections of spokes, it's dished out. I'm going to hit it in that area, so I'm going to mark it. Let's say I'm rotating, and then like right here, it's starting to come out, and then it's rubbing, and then like right here on the 3rd spoke, it starts to go away from the screwdriver, and we start getting a gap again. So it comes here, it starts getting close, it's rubbing. The 2nd spoke, the 3rd spoke, it's still rubbing, and then right here it's starting to go back. So that means it's kind of high, it's pushed out this way here for these 3 spokes. So what I'm going to do is take a hammer and I'm going to give it a hit at where it starts to come out. Obviously hit it where it's out the most, and keep hitting it and tapping it to where it starts to recede. Give it a couple of love taps there and then measure. I recommend don't hit it too hard to start and slowly work it. You got to make sure that your wheel is fully fastened onto your frame of your bike, because if you hit it and it's wobbling, you're not going to do anything. You've got to have this here solidly held. You've got to have your wheel solidly held in the frame. That way if you strike it with a hammer, you're going to bend it in. If it's really far out, you may want to go ahead and double check. Make sure that you have the sprocket properly fastened on. The same number of threads are going through on each of the bolts coming out of the nut. And go from there. Hope you like it. I hope I helped you out. Give me a thumbs up. Check the link down below where you can buy a heavy duty wheel. Thanks for watching.